When their 7-month-old daughter started screaming at 2:43 a.m., Laura and Ben thought they were losing her. The sound wasn't human. It was the kind of cry that makes your blood run cold. That tells you something is catastrophically wrong. Their German shepherd, Titan, heard it too. What he did in the next 12 minutes would change how this family understood love forever. The baby monitor exploded with noise that tore through the darkness like a siren you can't turn off. Laura was out of bed before her brain caught up with her body. Her feet hit the floor running, bare skin slapping against cold hardwood. Behind her, Ben fumbled for his glasses on the nightstand, his heart already hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. In the corner of their bedroom, Titan went from sleeping to fully alert in the space of a heartbeat. 92 pounds of pure muscle and protective instinct. His ears rotated like radar dishes, tracking Laura's footsteps down the hallway, processing the urgency in every sound. But he didn't follow her. Not yet. That should have been their first clue that something was different about tonight. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next is the kind of moment that reminds you why some bonds go deeper than words can reach. Why some connections can't be explained by science or logic. The nursery door was already open when Ben got there. Laura had their daughter Sophie pressed against her chest. The baby's face was crimson, veins visible at her temples from the force of her screaming. Tears streaming down those tiny cheeks in rivers. Her whole body rigid with distress, every muscle locked tight. What's wrong with her? Laura's voice came out high and thin, panic voice. That voice every parent dreads hearing come out of their own mouth. Ben, what's wrong? He touched Sophie's forehead with trembling fingers. Warm, yes, but not burning. Not fever warm. When did she start? I don't know. I was asleep and then, she bounced, swayed, did that desperate mother dance that every parent knows. The one that says, please, please calm down. The one that comes from some ancient instinct buried deep in human DNA. This isn't normal. This isn't her normal cry. Ben knew that. 7 months of sleepless nights had taught them Sophie's entire vocabulary of tears. The hungry cry that started soft and built to a crescendo. The tired cry that came with eye rubbing and yawns. The I need my diaper changed cry that was sharp and insistent. This was none of those familiar sounds. This was pure primal terror. The kind of crying that makes your own chest hurt. Check her diaper, Laura said, though she'd already checked twice in the 30 seconds before Ben arrived. Ben checked anyway. Dry. The bottle sat on the changing table, rejected and cooling. Sophie had thrown her pacifier across the room with surprising force for someone who couldn't even crawl yet. The teething gel had been applied before bed, ruling that out too. They were running out of options, running out of answers. Should I call and say what? Laura's voice cracked like thin ice over deep water. Our baby's crying and we don't know why. I'm her mother, Ben. I'm supposed to know what she needs. That's my one job. The one thing I'm supposed to be able to do. Sophie kept screaming. 18 minutes now. 18 minutes feels like 18 hours when your baby is in distress and you're running out of ideas. Then Titan moved. He'd been standing in the doorway, absolutely motionless, watching, processing with that eerie intelligence dogs sometimes show. Now he crossed the nursery in 3 deliberate strides and sat next to Laura, his shoulder pressed against her leg with gentle but unmistakable pressure. Titan, not now. Laura barely glanced down. Sophie was still inconsolable, still producing that sound that made every nerve in your body scream, wrong, wrong, something's wrong. The dog stayed put, didn't budge an inch. Then he did something he'd never done in his entire 4 years of life. He lifted his head toward the ceiling and released a sound that was neither bark nor whine. Something older, something primal. A sound that meant, listen to me, this matters right now. His eyes locked on the crib with laser focus. What's he doing? Ben asked, but Laura didn't answer. She was too focused on Sophie, who had now been screaming for a full 20 minutes straight. Titan stood with purpose, walked to the crib, put his massive paws up on the railing with deliberate care, and started pawing at something they couldn't see. Tighten down, Ben grabbed for his collar, but then he stopped mid-motion. The dog's nose was shoved deep into the narrow gap between the crib mattress and the frame, pushing, digging, his whole body language radiating urgent need to communicate. He looked back at them with an expression that was so humanly frustrated it made Ben's skin prickle. What is it? Laura had stopped bouncing. What's he looking at? Ben moved closer, peered into the gap where Titan's nose pointed insistently. Wedged there, twisted and trapped in that impossible-to-reach space, was Sophie's sleep rabbit. Time stopped. That rabbit. The gray one with the pink ears, worn impossibly soft from 7 months of constant contact. The one with the barely visible stain on its belly from when Sophie had spit up on it at 3 months old. She'd slept with it every single night since she was 6 weeks old. They'd bought backups, 3 identical ones. Sophie knew the difference every single time. This rabbit. This specific rabbit, with its crooked left ear and fading pink nose, was the only one that mattered. Her rabbit. Laura breathed, the realization hitting her like a physical blow to the chest. Ben's hands were shaking as he reached into the crib. The ear had gotten twisted somehow, pulled under the mattress edge, where Sophie's tiny fingers had no chance of reaching. She'd probably woken up, reached for it the way she did every night, found nothing but empty space, and her entire world had collapsed into chaos and fear. The instant Sophie saw that rabbit, her screaming stopped mid-breath. Just stopped. Her arms shot out with desperate need, grabbed it, pulled it against her chest like she was drowning and it was air, like it was the only thing tethering her to safety. She buried her face in its familiar, beloved softness, her crying dropping from screams to gasping sobs to hiccuping whimpers to blessed, beautiful silence. Silence crashed over the nursery like a wave. Laura and Ben stood frozen in place, staring at each other with wide eyes. And then at Titan, who had calmly sat back down, his tail sweeping across the carpet in slow, satisfied arcs that said, "Mission accomplished, problem solved." How did we not see it? Ben's voice came out as barely a whisper. We looked everywhere. Laura sank into the rocking chair, Sophie already getting heavy with approaching sleep against her shoulder. We're her parents and we didn't, her voice broke on the last word. I thought she was dying, Ben. For a second there, I really thought, I know. He dropped to his knees beside Titan, wrapped both arms around the thick neck of the dog, his hands still trembling with leftover adrenaline. I know. Me too. Titan leaned into Ben's embrace with gentle weight, his tail picking up speed, thumping harder against the floor. But his eyes never left Sophie. Still watching, still on guard, still doing his job even now. We're her parents, Laura said quietly, rocking in that automatic way. We looked everywhere except where it actually was. He knew, Ben's voice was rough with emotion. He just knew. Laura looked down at Titan. Really looked at him. This dog they'd almost given away before Sophie was born. This 90-pound liability, according to every well-meaning friend and family member who'd warned them with dire predictions. Dangerous breed, they'd said. Too protective. Unpredictable around infants. You're asking for tragedy. Just wait until the baby comes, they'd said. You'll see. They'd come within a single phone call of rehoming him. Good boy, Laura whispered, reaching down with her free hand to scratch behind Titan's ears. The dog's ears perked forward with pride. He walked over to the rocking chair and, very carefully, very gently, placed his enormous head on the armrest, close enough that Sophie's tiny foot brushed against his nose. The baby was already asleep now, the rabbit clutched in both hands like a treasure she'd never let go of again. Titan closed his eyes with deep contentment. This was his place, his purpose. Guardian of the small human, finder of lost things, solver of problems the tall humans couldn't see. Minutes passed in the quiet. Nobody moved. The crisis had ended, but its echo remained. That hollow feeling in your chest when you've been terrified, and then suddenly you're not. We should put her down, Ben said eventually, reluctant to break the moment. Laura stood with the kind of exaggerated care you develop after months of trying not to wake a sleeping baby. She lowered Sophie into the crib like she was made of the most fragile glass, positioned the rabbit where those small hands could find it instantly if she woke. They both triple-checked its placement. They weren't taking any chances. Not tonight. Not ever again. Titan's eyes tracked every movement, his body relaxed but alert, ready to sound the alarm if that rabbit even thought about disappearing again. Ben and Laura backed toward the door, holding their breath. Titan didn't follow. Instead, he settled on the floor directly beside the crib, head on his paws, eyes half closed, but not sleeping. His position was unmistakable. I'm staying here. This is where I belong. This is my post. Titan, come on, boy, Ben whispered. His tail thumped once against the carpet. That was his answer. No, I'm not leaving. Laura pulled Ben into the hallway gently. Let him stay. They left the door cracked open, just enough to hear if Sophie stirred, just enough to check without waking her. Back in their own bedroom, Laura didn't even bother getting under the covers. She just collapsed on top of them, staring at the ceiling with wide, exhausted eyes that couldn't quite process what had just happened. I'm her mother, she said to the darkness. I'm supposed to know when something's wrong. I'm supposed to be able to fix it. That's what mothers do. Ben didn't have an answer for that, because she was right. They'd stood there completely helpless while their daughter screamed in terror. And it was their dog who figured it out. Their dog who knew what they couldn't see. Maybe that's why we have him, said Ben finally, his voice quiet in the darkness. Maybe we're not supposed to do this alone. Maybe that's the whole point of family. Laura was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm really glad we didn't give him away. Me too. Best decision we almost didn't make. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window. Laura sat bolt upright, heart racing. Sophie. Why hadn't Sophie cried for her morning feeding? They both ran on pure parental instinct, burst into the nursery, expecting the worst, hoping for the best. Sophie was awake, sitting up with the rabbit in one hand. With her other hand, she was reaching through the slats, fingers tangled happily in Titan's fur. The dog was exactly where they'd left him. He'd been there all night. Sophie saw her parents and broke into that gummy smile, giggled, tugging on Titan's ear. His tail thumped. He licked her fingers. She dissolved in laughter. He stayed. Laura breathed. Ben pulled out his phone, took a photo.